Iceberg videos. There's probably more of them than there are actual icebergs on the planet. You know the premise, facts get more and more creepy and obscure the deeper you go. You know what else is creepy, deep and obscure? The ocean. The place where icebergs come from. Despite this, I haven't found any iceberg videos or charts about it, so I decided to put together my own, comprised of some of my favorite mysterious or creepy facts about the ocean. Unexplainable stories, rare creatures, cryptids, strange findings, and phenomena, we're gonna get into it all. So without further ado, welcome aboard. This is the Aquatic Anomalies Iceberg. Atlantis. Atlantis, as I'm sure you already know, is a mythological island that originated from the works of Plato. In Plato's stories, the people of Atlantis attack Athens, causing them to fall out of favor with the gods, and the island is submerged into the Atlantic Ocean as punishment. Since its creation, the story of Atlantis has had a significant impact on contemporary culture, becoming interpreted as a lost super-civilization that would be adapted into various books, movies, resorts, etc. Throughout history, it's been speculated if Atlantis was ever a real location, or if the events of the story were at least based on similar events, such as the Black Sea Flood. Mermaids. Another no-brainer. We'll get to the good stuff eventually, I promise. Mermaids are mythological creatures that are half human, half fish. You know what a mermaid is, I'm not gonna waste your time. Most agree that mermaids are fictional, but in 2011 there was an uptick in people that believe that mermaids were real, thanks to a mockumentary that aired on Animal Planet that fooled many people into thinking it was real. Including me.
I was never a believer in conspiracy theories. But what we were looking at was a mermaid.
Most evidence of mermaids being real has been debunked, but the fact that they appear in so many different cultures continue to add to the belief that there is some truth to mermaid myths. Kraken. The Kraken is a legendary sea monster that appears in multiple European mythologies. It has many differently described appearances, sometimes as a clawed creature with multiple heads, or as a large multi-armed fish, crab, or starfish. But by far the most popular appearance is as a giant octopus-like creature. As time passed, the Kraken became thought of as a tall tale that sailors would tell each other to scare or impress others, until it was discovered that giant squids do in fact exist, and in some instances grow to be over 50 feet long. Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is a loosely defined region between Bermuda, Puerto Rico, and the southern tip of Florida, where a number of ships and aircraft have disappeared without explanation. Some examples of the most popular disappearances include the USS Cyclops in 1918, the Star Tiger in 1948, the Star Ariel in 1949, and Flight 19, a group of 5 US TBM Avenger torpedo bombers that went missing during a navigation training flight in 1945. In many of these disappearances, no distress signals were ever transmitted from these ships, and in some instances the aircraft that were sent to search for these ships have also went missing. Of course, there are many theories about the Bermuda Triangle, like it being a portal to a parallel universe, or the disappearances being caused by aliens. One prevailing theory is that the people on these ships failed to account for the agonic line that passes through the Bermuda Triangle. For those who don't know what an agonic line is, it is a place where the magnetic north and true north are the same. This is believed to have caused their compasses to change, causing them to get lost. There's obviously a lot of information and theories about the Bermuda Triangle, probably enough to make a separate video about. So to not make this too long, I'm just going to move on to the next entry. Megalodon. Megalodon was a giant prehistoric shark that lived approximately 23 to 3.6 million years ago. Megalodons are estimated to have been as large as 47 to 67 feet long and had a diet consisting of large seals and whales. Because of its size and reputation as being one of the most powerful predators to have ever lived, it's captured the imagination of people across the globe, becoming arguably the most famous extinct sea creature to ever exist. In 2013, there was an uptick in people that believed that megalodons are still out there, thanks to a mockumentary that aired on the Discovery Channel that fooled a lot of people into thinking it was real. including me.
What the hell was that?
We're ready for it.
Thalassophobia. Thalassophobia is the fear of large bodies of water. People with thalassophobia often experience feelings of anxiety when looking at or thinking about how vast, deep, and empty the ocean is. This fear probably stems from the fact that deep bodies of water are an environment that humanity was never meant to survive for very long in. Although images of the vast emptiness of the ocean create fear in some people, others feel that there's sort of a surreal, calming feeling to them. Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench is a massive oceanic trench located in the Pacific Ocean, and is home to the deepest known point in the ocean called the Challenger Deep, which is located here and is at a maximum depth of 35,856 feet. Since its discovery, there have been 21 different people daring enough to descend to Challenger Deep. In recent years, there's been a spike in interest of exploring the Mariana Trench, as 18 out of the 21 people that dived down to Challenger Deep did so in the last 3 years. Milky Sea Phenomenon. Milky Sea phenomenon, sometimes referred to as Mareal, is an event where the waters of the ocean seem to have this ghost-like, translucent glow and cloudy appearance to it. It is currently believed to be caused by bioluminescent microorganisms, but it is unknown how or why they do this. Baltic Sea Anomaly. The Baltic Sea Anomaly is a large, strange-looking circular feature located in the Baltic Sea. It was discovered in 2011 during an expedition where they were using sonar imaging to search for ship wreckage. Due to the feature's unnatural shape, speculation in tabloid newspapers ran wild, saying that it was a sunken UFO or something like that. Samples of stone allegedly recovered from the anomaly have been concluded to be standard granite and sandstone, leading to a consensus that it is a natural geological formation created by glacial activity. Basically, a long time ago, a glacier once sat on top of the rock, and as it melted, the glacier sanded down and eroded the rock beneath it, creating its unusually smooth appearance. Purple Orb. In 2016, this strange orb was found off the coast of California. Initially, it stumped researchers as to what it was, but after taking it and studying it, they found out it was a snail belonging to the Velutinidae family. This makes this orb the first documented member of a newly discovered species. Submechanophobia. Submechanophobia is, simply put, the fear of submerged man-made objects. Although I don't really have thalassophobia, I'll admit there's something about these submechanophobia images that gets to me a little bit. If I had to guess where this fear comes from, I think it has something to do with how easily the machines and structures we made can be swallowed up and left to rot. There's also the thought of what happened to the people that were on this boat, or this plane. Did they make it out before it sunk? There's just something kind of haunting to seeing man-made objects in such a state of decay. Underwater water. Have you ever watched an episode of SpongeBob where they go to Goo Lagoon and you ask yourself, how is there a lake underwater? Well, as it turns out, that's actually a thing. Sort of. They're called brine pools, and they're dense bodies of water that have a salinity that is 3 to 8 times greater than the surrounding ocean, giving off the appearance of water being underwater. Due to their dense saltiness, brine pools hinder the breathing of most organisms, meaning that fish can drown in them. Bravo Hillenberg. Yonaguni Monument. The Yonaguni Monument is an underwater rock formation off the coast of Yonaguni Island, Japan. Because of its peculiar rectangular structure, many speculate that these formations were man-made, or at the least made by some intelligent species. Hell, some people have even said that it's a remnant of Atlantis or the lost continent of Mu. It seems unlikely that it was made by humans because of the size of some of its walls, but I don't really blame anybody for thinking that it's man-made because, look at it. Due to it being close to the surface, it's become a popular tourist attraction among divers. So maybe you could visit it yourself one day. The Bloop. The bloop is a name given to a mysterious underwater sound recorded by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in 1997. It was recorded in the South Pacific, and it sounds like this. Given its similarities to sounds produced by marine animals such as whales, it was initially believed to have come from an animal. But what's concerning about that theory is that this sound was so loud that it was picked up by multiple sensors thousands of miles apart from each other. Meaning that if the bloop came from an animal, it would be far larger than any known animal on the planet. However, the current consensus is that the sound was created by cracking sea ice because other recordings of cracking sea ice sound very similar to the bloop. But don't worry, the bloop isn't the only unexplained sound to come from the deep, which is a perfect segue into our next entry. Julia. Julia is a name given to another unidentified underwater sound, and it sounds like this. It was recorded on March 1st, 1999 by the NOAA. Its origin point was narrowed down to be near Cape Adare, Antarctica, which gives credibility to the theory that this sound, along with the bloop, were most likely caused by breaking ice. There was also this viral image that went around a few years ago that claims that there was a satellite image of a large, moving shadow in the water where this sound was recorded, but there's absolutely nothing to back it up.
Let's go!
Ningen. The Ningen is a Japanese cryptid that's described as a humanoid whale-like creature that inhabits the icy waters of the Antarctic. They are said to be completely white in color and are about 20 to 30 meters long. The legend started on the Japanese website 2chan, with a forum post that claimed that members of a whale research ship saw the creature, initially mistook it for a submarine, then watched it disappear beneath the waves. Its appearance changes depending on who you ask about it. Sometimes it has legs and other times it has arms and a tail. But there is no tangible evidence of the Ningen's existence other than word of mouth. The Mary Celeste. The Mary Celeste was an American merchant ship that left to deliver barrels of alcohol from New York City to Genoa, Italy on November 7, 1874. But nearly a month later, on December 4th, it was discovered abandoned and floating adrift in the middle of the Atlantic, some 400 miles off the coast of Portugal. There wasn't a trace left of Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, his wife, his 2-year-old daughter, or the 7 crewmen that they were sailing with. All the captain's and crew's personal belongings, as well as the ship's cargo, were left intact. The last entry in the ship's log was dated just 10 days before the ship was discovered. The only things that were amiss was a single lifeboat and a dismantled pump. This has become probably the most popular true ghost ship story because of how it defies almost any explanation. It couldn't have been pirates or a mutiny because the ship's cargo was left intact, and there was no evidence of foul play. The ship wasn't significantly damaged, so there wasn't an immediate reason for the crew to abandon the ship. There are well thought out theories that the ship's pumps were inoperative, causing Briggs to think that the ship was taking on more water than it actually was, causing him and his crew to abandon ship, as evidenced by the dismantled pump found on the ship. There's also a theory that leaking alcohol caused a gas explosion that scared the captain and his crew into abandoning their ship. But if you want my theory, I think that they were all sucked into purgatory and the events of the game Limbo of the Lost are true to reality. KAZ-2 ship. The KAZ-2 was a ship that was found drifting 88 miles northeast of Australia on April 20th, 2007, with all of its crewmen missing. Like with the Mary Celeste, the ship was in perfect condition. The engine was running, its radio and GPS were functional, and food was set up neatly on the table. The only things that were wrong with the boat were that one of its sails had been badly shredded, and that there was no life raft on board. But it's unknown if the ship ever had a life raft on board to begin with. The official explanation given is that one man tried to free a fishing lure that was stuck on the ship's portside rudder and ended up falling into the water. The second guy jumped in to help him, while the third guy was knocked off the ship by a sail that was pushed by the wind. Allegedly, the crew of the Kos-2 were all relatively inexperienced sailors, but some people take issue with this explanation because of how absurdly slapstick it feels. Magnapinna/big fin squid. The Magnapinna squid, sometimes called the big fin squid, is a species of long-armed, rarely seen squids that are found in the deep sea. Not a lot is known about these squids, but it's believed that they use their long arms to catch zooplankton that bump into their arms as they passively float by. Because of their strange T-posing appearance, they often show up in those top creepiest sea creatures you don't know about kind of lists. Devil's Sea. The Devil's Sea, also known as the Pacific Bermuda Triangle, or sometimes called the Dragon's Triangle, is a region of the ocean south of Tokyo. As its other name suggests, the Devil's Sea is basically the eastern equivalent of the Bermuda Triangle, with its own collection of stories of ships and aircraft disappearing without explanation. My personal favorite story is of Shiro Kawamoto, a pilot who disappeared in 1945 while crossing the Triangle. Before his disappearance, he sent out a distress radio transmission, but it ended up creating more questions than answers, as his message ended with, "Something is happening in the sky. The sky is opening up." Although the only real source is a True Weird Stories book from 1997 by an author with a history of writing fiction books, so it's probably fake. One explanation for these disappearances is that the region is home to a lot of undersea volcanoes and methane hydrates. Basically, the undersea volcanoes heat up the hydrates and cause them to release methane gases that rise and form bubbles on the surface of the water, which can interrupt buoyancy and cause a ship to sink. But yeah, it's essentially just another Bermuda Triangle. There's surprisingly not a whole lot more to it. HMS Daedalus Sea Serpent. This refers to a monster that was sighted by the British naval vessel Daedalus in 1848. People on the ship report that this serpent was at least 60 feet long, was moving between 19 to 24 kilometers per hour, and had a dark brown color to it. People say that it was most likely a misidentified whale, but I'll allow you to be the judge. Immortal Jellyfish. The immortal jellyfish is a species of jellyfish that was discovered in the Mediterranean Sea. These jellyfish are no larger than your pinky nail and were discovered in the 1880s. But what makes them so interesting is what happens to them in response to physical damage or starvation. When they are threatened with death, they will age backwards into a polyp and essentially be born again. Hence the name immortal jellyfish. This ability was first observed in the 1990s and has captured the attention of medical scientists because it could theoretically be used to replace damaged or mutated cells in the human body, potentially becoming a cure for cancer. 1968 submarine disappearances. Basically, in the early months of 1968, 4 different submarines from different nations went missing. These 4 ships were the Israeli INS Dakar, the French Minerve, the Soviet K-129, and the USS Scorpion. None of these nations have been able to determine the exact cause of the loss of their submarines. The wreckages of these subs were all eventually found on the seafloor. It's believed that the sinking of the submarines was caused by equipment failures, like a misfired missile or violent underwater conditions. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse is a lighthouse off the west coast of mainland Scotland, and is famous for the mysterious disappearance of its keepers in 1900. The first sign that something was wrong in the lighthouse was when a passing ship noted that the light wasn't operational during poor weather conditions. When the lighthouse was searched, the search crew found that all 3 lighthouse keepers that were supposed to be there were all gone without a trace. What's strange is that everything in the lighthouse was orderly, with no signs of a struggle, seeming to indicate that the 3 men had left voluntarily. The door was closed, kitchen utensils were clean, and one of the men left his coat hanging inside. Proposed theories are like that of the Kos-2, where something happened that caused one man to accidentally fall into violent waters, and the other 2 men were swept away trying to help him. Whatever the reason or cause, it's unsettling that the ocean can cause 3 men to disappear without a trace. Phantom Islands. Phantom islands are islands that have been mapped out or documented to exist at some point, but were later found to not exist. This is different from lost islands, which are lands that are known to have existed and were swallowed by the sea. Unlike lost islands, it's up in the air if some of these islands ever existed. These islands usually come from mistakes or deliberate misinformation, but that hasn't stopped people from speculating that they did exist at some point in history. BB's bathysphere/untouchable fish. The bathysphere was a deep-sea submersible vehicle created by engineer Otis Barton to be used by naturalist William Beebe to study undersea wildlife. This vehicle had 3 3-inch thick windows, was unpowered, and lowered into the ocean on a cable. During the 1930s, Barton and Beebe went on various dives to document deep-sea animals that had never been seen in their native habitats. On one of these dives, they reached a depth of 3,028 feet, being the deepest anyone had ever been in the ocean at that point in time. Down there they had no control of the vehicle, and their only communication with the surface was a simple telephone system. During another dive, Beebe believed that he had discovered a new species of fish that he called the untouchable fish. He describes these fish as being 6 feet long, with sharp teeth and a jaw that they kept wide open, a row of lights that ran across their bodies, and 2 long appendages that hung down with bioluminescent lights at their tips. Barton would confirm the sighting, although he himself didn't see the fish as he was busy maintaining the bathysphere when it happened. Since its reported discovery, no such animal has been seen, which has led some to believe that Beebe mistook what he had seen, or that the fish has gone extinct since the time he had seen it. There's something existential about the thought of only one person ever seeing a creature before its extinction. It begs the question of what other undiscovered animals existed under our noses that are now long gone. Point Nemo. Point Nemo is a location out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and is the most remote location on the planet, meaning that while at Point Nemo you are the furthest away you can be from human civilization while still being on Earth. A couple reassuring facts about Point Nemo are that it's located about a few thousand miles west of where the bloop is estimated to have originated from, and is very close to where H.P. Lovecraft stated the city of R'lyeh to be located. It's been stated that Point Nemo is closer to the International Space Station than any other human settlement, and as it turns out, Point Nemo is the designated location for the International Space Station to crash into when it's retired. Stransay Beast. The Stransay Beast was a large carcass that washed ashore on the island of Stransay, Scotland in 1808. The Vernerian Natural History Society initially couldn't identify the creature and declared it a new species of sea serpent. At first it was measured as 55 feet long, but it would later be declared that the carcass was 36 feet and was actually a decaying basking shark. The conflicting reports on how big the thing was, as well as eyewitness descriptions of the carcass saying that it had legs, have led to much speculation. Beach carcasses can often be misidentified depending on their condition, but the largest reported length of a basking shark is 40 feet. So if this thing truly was 55 feet, it would still be something of a baffling discovery, shark or not. 60-foot crocodile attacking German U-boat. On July 30th, 1915, a German U-boat fired a torpedo at a cargo ship, which ended up causing a massive underwater explosion, launching wreckage in all directions. But amidst the wreckage, an alleged 60-foot crocodile-like beast was also launched into the air. But that's not the only World War I sea monster story, as on April 30th, 1918, towards the end of the war, the crew of a different German U-boat had surrendered and were captured by the British. When questioned, the captain said that they were forced to surrender because their submarine was incapable of diving due to a large creature biting chunks out of their ship. These stories have fallen under discrepancy, however, as there allegedly isn't much documentation of them that dates before 2005. Leading many to think that they're just internet folklore. "4chan Sea Carpet." This refers to a cryptid described in a collection of stories shared in a thread about the deep sea on 4chan's X board in 2020. In the thread, a user that claimed to be a professional diver shares stories and urban legends that he's heard from other divers. In one of these stories, he describes an organism called the black carpet. According to his post, the carpet is some sort of colony organism, like a giant moving coral. is a giant black carpet of macrobiotic cells that crawls over the seafloor, sifting through nutrients with millions of tiny feelers. It's also about a mile wide and has a large feeler that hangs off the top of it that can sting prey similarly to a jellyfish. The black carpet is also implied to be the creature that the bloop originated from. I know that anything on 4chan should come with a large allegedly next to it, and a lot of the stories shared in the thread sound a little too Hollywood to be true, but I just think that it's a really cool concept for a cryptid. Most sea monster stories involve a large predatory animal like a big shark or crocodile, but the carpet is more like a siphonophore or sea star kind of organism that consumes prey a lot more passively. It's pretty creative and gives the story just a tiny bit more believability, for me at least. Black Demon. Hey, here's one of those big sharks I was talking about. That's okay, I have a soft spot for these kinds of cryptids too. The Black Demon is an enormous shark that's said to live off the coast of Mexico's Baja California peninsula. There isn't much to the Black Demon other than it's black and is said to be as long as 60 feet in length. This shark also apparently got a Shark Week special about it. I'm sure if I watched it I probably would have believed it too. Rare sea creatures. So the next entry on the Iceberg, as well as a few other entries on the next few tiers, were about some more rarely observed sea creatures. But some of these creatures are so rare that there isn't really a lot of readily available information about them, so I decided to just cover them all here. Schaefer's anglerfish. Schaefer's anglerfish is a species of goosefish that was first discovered in the Caribbean in 1976. These fish are exceedingly rare, and there have only been a handful of specimens encountered. Like other fish of its kind, it uses the appendage on its head to lure and draw prey before attacking them. Unidentified four-tentacled jellyfish. During an expedition by the NOAA in the Gulf of Mexico, an ROV picked up footage of this strange jellyfish that has four spider-like appendages on top of it. A year later, a similar jellyfish was found in the waters of Hawaii, albeit with a different coloration, opacity, and tentacle shape. But the similarities between them are enough to suggest that they're part of the same undiscovered group. Casper octopus. During yet another ROV expedition in 2016 near Hawaii, this small octopus was recorded. It was nicknamed Casper due to its clear, palish, ghost-like appearance. Like the jellyfish in the last entry, its discovery is so new that it has yet to be given a common name. Contorted squid. On an expedition in the Gulf of Mexico, this weirdly shaped squid was found. Cephalopods often contort their bodies for camouflage or to scare off predators, so it's a possibility that this is a species that has already been discovered. But this one was contorted to an extent that made it impossible to accurately identify, leaving it open to the possibility that it's a new species. There's this meme that goes around sometimes that says something along the lines of, "Born too late to explore the world, born too early to explore the universe," implying that everything and anything worthwhile that exists has already been found by someone else. So it's cool to see these creatures somewhat disprove that idea and add just a little bit of mystery and wonder to the world. Soya Antarctic Godzilla. Allegedly in 1958, the Japanese Antarctic observation ship Soya encountered a strange creature. At first they thought it was a submarine, but upon closer inspection they noticed it had eyes, ears, a cow-like head, and brown hair across its body. Allegedly, the captain named this monster Antarctic Godzilla. Again, I say allegedly because everything I could find about this sighting leads back to this one post from a 2009 UFO forum without any sources, so do with that what you will. Also, I found this image after searching Soya monster on Google, so yeah, let's just move on. Ocean at night. This refers to a phenomenon where after the sun goes down, creatures from the deeper and darker parts of the ocean swim upward. Fish are much more active at night and can be attracted to lights that we shine on the surface. That's interesting and all, but how come this is on every conspiracy theory iceberg? Well, that's because of a supposed story where the US Navy was conducting experiments with an artificial sun in the Gulf of Aden. Theoretically, using an artificial sun would be a way to create near infinite energy. So if it can be used to create infinite energy, why aren't we doing it? Well, these artificial suns create a ton of light. So what if one night this artificial sun that the Navy was experimenting with awoke or attracted something in the ocean that we really don't want to know that we exist? This story seems to be a combination of multiple different events and conspiracies. It is true that artificial suns have been created to see if concentrated light could generate hydrogen fuel, which is one of the factors contributing to the story. The rest of it comes from a WikiLeaks article about an alleged vortex forming in the Gulf of Aden that's backed up by records of multiple earthquakes that happened in the area around the same time. This all came together to form a story about a reactor in the ocean that woke up something big that caused an earthquake. Coconut crabs ate Amelia Earhart. As many of you may already know, Amelia Earhart was a famous American aviator that went missing while flying from Lae, New Guinea to Howland Island on a mission to fly around the whole world. There's much speculation as to what happened to her and her navigator Fred Noonan. One of the proposed theories is that they made an emergency landing after something went wrong with their aircraft. They then ditched the aircraft in the ocean, then swam to a nearby island and died. But if that's true, what happened to the bodies? Well, as the name of this entry states, the bodies were eaten by these things, coconut crabs. There is plausibility to this because coconut crabs have been observed to feed off carcasses of other animals. And they're also called robber crabs by some because of their tendency to steal things from people for no real reason, meaning that they could have taken away any bones that were left behind. This is not only a possible explanation for the disappearance of Amelia Earhart, but also a possible explanation for any missing person cases within the territories that these crabs live in. Giant cannibal shark. In 2003, scientists tagged a great white shark to study temperatures and depth. Several months later, the tag was found on a beach 2.5 miles away from where it was first attached to the shark. After collecting the data on the tag, they discovered that after about 4 months of normal behavior, the shark seemed to abruptly dive 1,903 feet into the ocean, and then the tag slowly floated back up. This suggests that the shark was attacked by another predator, possibly a giant cannibal shark. 1997 whistle sound. Yet another unidentified sound that was recorded in the Pacific Ocean in 1997. Here's how it sounds. Not much more to say about this one, other than the NOAA has ruled out the theory that it was caused by volcanic activity because it was only recorded by one hydrophone rather than the 3 required to triangulate its location. Unidentified Sagami Bay creature. In August of 2010, the Japan Agency for Marine Earth Science and Technology caught footage of what appears to be a creature with 2 blank eyes idly floating by. If you ask me, it looks like a rock with 2 conveniently placed sponges or barnacles giving it the appearance of a creature. And the fact that this footage was just released without any information about the creature seems to suggest that they also think it's just a rock. But that hasn't stopped other people from speculating. And who knows, there are other sea creatures that disguise themselves to avoid predators or to be better hunters. So what if this creature is so good at disguising itself that it's fooled me and many others into thinking that it's a rock? It's a bit of a stretch, but we'll go with it. Upsweep. Upsweep is the final underwater sound that we're going to go over. Here's the clip. Unlike the previous unidentified sounds, this one has occurred every single year since it was discovered in 1991. But every year the volume of the sound decreases, suggesting that whatever is causing it is slowly going away. The scientific explanation is that it's volcanic activity. But to me it kinda reminds me of those sounds from Saturn. Therefore, we can conclude without a doubt that upsweep is the sound of a portal to Saturn that opens and gets smaller every year. Don't even try to prove me wrong. Bimini Road. Bimini Road, sometimes called the Bimini Wall, is an underwater rock formation near North Bimini Island in the Bahamas. It appears to be a half-mile long linear road mostly composed of rectangular blocks. Because of the irregular shape of the rocks, some believe that the formation is the remains of an ancient road, wall, pier, or other man-made structure. However, there isn't enough archaeological evidence to confirm this, and as we have seen, stranger formations have been created through natural means. Sea People Invasions. The Sea People were a seafaring army that attacked multiple nations in the East Mediterranean. What's strange about them is that nobody knows where they came from. We only have records that they invaded several nations towards the end of the Bronze Age. Their origin is a mystery to researchers and historians to this day, making their existence one of the most perplexing historical discoveries. Vertical migration. Remember when I was explaining the ocean at night theory and I brought up how sea creatures will swim towards the surface at night? Well, that's exactly what vertical migration is. Animals moving up or down in bodies of water in response to external factors. So why is it here at the bottom of the iceberg? Well, that's because I feel that it ties into a lot of the other entries, as it can be used as a possible explanation for the disappearances of the creatures listed on this iceberg. Think of any creature that once existed or has been rumored to exist. What if they still exist and the reason that we no longer see them is because they migrated deeper into the ocean for one reason or another? For example, what if the increasing use of sea travel caused organisms to migrate downward to avoid boats and fissures? Not really a definitive answer to the disappearances of these creatures, but it's something interesting to think about. Call of the Deep. This goes back to the X thread that described the black carpet. In another one of this diver Anon's tales, he recalls a story of something that happened to his friend Frank while he was a diving instructor. In this story, Frank was taking a group of new trainees out into deeper waters to get them used to the sensation of being underwater and being unable to see the bottom. Frank says that people getting scared of deep ocean water were pretty common. But there's another reaction that he's seen, one that he named the Call of the Deep. He then goes on to recall a dive where one kid hung back from the rest of the group, staring down into the water. When Frank tried to approach him, he began swimming straight down into the abyss. Despite Frank's best efforts to stop him, the kid shook him off and continued downward to his presumed death. The writer of this post goes on to say that he's heard similar stories from other diving instructors. For whatever reason, whether it be thrill-seeking or curiosity, these people feel compelled to swim straight down into the ocean. It's an interesting, albeit vague concept that can be applied to a lot of things. Remember when I was talking about thalassophobia and brought up how some people find the vast emptiness of the ocean to be sort of calming? Maybe that could be some variation of the Call of the Deep. The mysterious nature of the ocean compels us to want to explore and know more about it, despite how we as humans were biologically designed to never venture far into it. Hell, if you've been watching this video up to this point out of morbid curiosity, who's to say that you aren't experiencing some sort of Call of the Deep? God is over all. This refers to the final entry of a supposed logbook that was kept by Thomas Marshall before he disappeared from the Flannan Isles lighthouse. In his last few entries, dating from December 12th to December 15th, the exact day that somebody noticed something was wrong with the lighthouse, he details a raging storm that was so bad the 3 lighthouse keepers were driven to tears and left praying for their lives. There were no reports of any storms between the 12th and 15th of December 1900. On the final entry, Marshall simply writes, 1 p.m., storm ended, sea calm, God is over all. These logbook entries are sadly a fictional addition to the Flannan Isles story, originating from the August 1929 issue of True Stories magazine. But I feel like the final supposed log entry, God is over all, concludes everything that we've talked about in this video. The ocean is so powerful that it can cause 3 men to disappear without any trace of what happened to them, to the point where we are still speculating about it over 120 years later. It's so good at hiding things from us that it seems like every time we dive down into it, we discover another creature that's existed for millennia. There isn't a single structure, man-made or natural, tall enough to not be submerged when placed in the deepest parts of the ocean. Despite our advancements, mankind is still no match for the forces of nature. Anything that we create can be swept away and lost to time in the sea. It serves as a reminder that God is over all. Existential nihilism aside, doesn't that make everything that we do know about the ocean more impressive? That countless organisms can find a way to thrive in such an environment? And that we, despite our evolutionary disadvantages, can find ways to explore these large bodies of water, to travel to places we were never meant to travel, and discover things we would have otherwise never seen? I could go on, but I think I've illustrated why I find this topic endlessly fascinating. And if you've watched this far, then I guess you also find it interesting. So, I just want to say thanks for watching. I know that this isn't exactly what people subscribe to me for, so it's awesome if you've watched this far. I know that there's a lot of stuff that I missed, and probably a lot of stuff that I got wrong, so maybe I can make a part 2 to this video. But again, thanks for watching, and I hope that it doesn't take me another year to make another video.